Good morning, good morning. Welcome to another beautiful morning. We're on day 16 of my parenting challenge. And today we are still in part 3 where we're looking at behaviors a little bit more closely. So today we're going to be looking at attention-seeking behaviors specifically, and we're going to start by looking at the underlying need. It's really important to understand the purpose of the behaviors and the underlying need so we know how to best effectively, support our kids. So hopefully you've had a chance to analyze your kids' behaviors, and hopefully you've had a chance to start writing down how you typically respond to behaviors. So for example, a typical response to behaviors might be yelling or timeout or all of those sorts of things. What ends up happening is we tend to do the same things over and over and over again, and we get ourselves into a parenting rut. And so we need to be aware of the patterns that we're falling into and what we can be doing differently, because that's exactly what we need to start to do. We need to start doing things differently so that we're not stuck. If ever you do feel stuck as we're going through this, it's going to take time to start changing how we're responding and changing our response patterns. So if you ever do feel stuck, one word of advice is maybe to try to do the opposite. Stop to think, what would I normally do in this situation? If I would normally yell, maybe I'll whisper. If I normally stand over my kids, looking down, scolding them with my finger, maybe I'm dropping down to my knees and I'm getting at eye level with them. I'm softening my approach. So just looking at, in those moments, what can we do differently than we normally do? Now, you also need to know when you start responding differently to your kids, the behaviors are probably going to get worse before they get better. So that's called extinction burst, where kids are going to push the boundaries, right? Because, oh, mom and dad, this isn't how they normally react. So they're going to push a little bit more and push a little bit more. Okay, that's the boundary. I know how they're going to react now. And that's why we see some limit pushing, because they need to know that boundary is there. But when you stay firm and you stick with what you're doing, that helps kids know, there's the boundary, and when I know the boundary, that gives me security, and that actually gives me confidence as well. And so that's why we want to make sure we're consistent in establishing those boundaries. So today, like I said, we're going to look at these attention-seeking behaviors. Those are the ones where kids might be whining or tantruming, and it's just annoying us, right? Or screaming, uber annoying. But there's an underlying need here. Sometimes there is a skill deficit. Kids just don't know how to get your attention effectively, right? And so they just know, I scream, mom looks at me, that's how I get attention. But oftentimes these kids aren't feeling connected. Some kids feel that the only way they are important, or the only way that they're loved or noticed, is if they are the center of attention. And so they're constantly fighting for that attention. So knowing that you have a kiddo here who feels unconnected and who feels like the only way they feel important, their only value, is to be the center of attention, right away that changes how we're going to respond. So how you might normally get irritated and yell, if you see this kid who's not feeling very loved or important, that softens our heart. We're like, oh, kiddo, right? So if you've been connecting with your kids and giving them lots of positive attention, you're probably starting to see some of these attention behaviors go away too, because kids are feeling connected, right? They're already getting that positive attention. But there's other things that we need to do as well before the behavior happens. If there is a skill deficit and they don't know how to get our attention, well, we're going to have to teach them. Let them know, this is how you can get my attention. If I'm on the computer, if I'm doing some work, or if I'm talking with someone, you can say, hey, mom, excuse me, can I have a moment with you, right? Or hey, mom, excuse me, can I have some help? Whatever that is. And then you're going to go and practice. It's not enough just to tell them. We're going to practice it and then reinforce it so they know, oh, yeah, that's exactly what I need to do. So it might be, okay, kiddo, I'm going to go pretend to be on the phone. What are you going to do? Excuse me, mom, right? Okay, 1 second. Thanks for getting my attention exactly how I want. Those are the things that we need to do. Now, we know you might have heard the 5-to-1 rule, but it takes 10 to 12 positive statements to negate any one negative statement, and especially for kids. So we've made it easy for parents, and that's why they've made it, 5 positives to every 1 negative. But the point here is that we often take for granted when our kids are being good, right? We when they're being good, we don't often acknowledge that. But when they're being bad, we almost always acknowledge it, right? And we might start yelling at them. And kids, are working for undivided attention, because oftentimes there's times where they are being good, and they are, and I'm kind of bad for this sometimes, where I'm busy working away, I'm stressed getting through my emails, and my kiddos might say, "Hey mom, can I get your help?" And I'm like, what already? Can't you see that I'm busy? So they did come and get my attention properly, but I'm getting upset with them. Or maybe this has happened too, where, you get home from work, well, maybe not with COVID, but you get home from a long days of work, or you've been working all day, and the kids come to you, they're excited to see you, and they want to tell you about the day, or they're asking you lots of questions, and you're like, what? All right, can I just have 5 minutes to myself? So now they're getting in trouble, right, for being excited to see us. So sometimes there's these little messages, even when they are being good, that we're sending them. Well, I'm going to get in trouble if I'm asking anyways, or if I'm excited to see you. So, I'm going to get in trouble if I scream, but at least then I'm going to have your undivided attention, because every other time you're still working, right? So we need to be careful about those messages that we're giving. So in these early stages, when we look at behaviors, we want to make sure when they are appropriately coming to us and they're calm and they're happy, that we do drop everything and give them our attention, even if you are busy. And the reason is we need them to learn that these are the behaviors that are going to get our attention. And then we can say, hey, but when I'm on the phone, that's not the time. Maybe just wait a second. Maybe you can stand there and kind of put your hand up, and I'll give you a thumbs up, and then I'll know I can come and talk to you. So it's kind of making sure that we're addressing when they're being positive. Now, in the heat of the moment, if these attention-seeking behaviors do come up, you've probably heard we need to ignore those behaviors, right? Because otherwise, if they're screaming and screaming and screaming, and we finally give them attention, they just know if I scream, they're going to give us our attention. So we're now rewarding those behaviors and strengthening those behaviors. So you do, there's times if you have to get your work done, that's okay, right? But my daughter, over time, they'll learn. My daughter knows that no whining or screaming will ever get my attention. She can do it all she wants, but until she says, hey mom, I need help, then I'll drop what I'm doing and then go give it to her. But you got to remember, and I think this is where parents really make the big mistake, these kids feel disconnected, right? So these kids need connection. So when we ignore, it's just the behavior that we're ignoring. We're not completely ignoring the entire child, right? Because they're already feeling disconnected. So we can acknowledge them, but it's going to be a little bit different. So if I'm busy on my computer and my daughter comes up and she's whining and screaming, oh, kiddo, it sounds like you've got, something. When you say, mom, I need help, then I'll get off my computer and come to you. So I'm still acknowledging her, but I'm not giving her my full attention. I'm still engaged in what I'm doing. I'm neutral, and I'm giving her just a little bit of, verbal input. That's it. And that's just a good reminder. Oh yeah, that's what mom expects. Right? And then as soon as she tells me, hey mom, excuse me, I'm ready, I drop everything I'm doing and I look at her and give her my full attention. Hey kiddo, thank you for using your words. What's up? And I lean forward and I open my body so I'm completely engaged, giving her my full attention. Of course, there's going to be some attention behaviors, especially if you have younger kids, that are a little bit dangerous, that you can't just ignore those behaviors, right? And I'm not talking about if they're threatening to pour the milk. I'm talking about, they're going to break their necks because they've climbed high, or they're going to run away. Those are the times, sometimes we do have to intervene, unfortunately, and we're strengthening those behaviors. But as much as possible, we want to stay neutral. We want to give as little, verbal feedback as possible. If we do have to grab them, for example, we are not talking. It's just sort of matter of fact. I'm taking the object away that's dangerous, or I'm putting you in a safer place, and then that's it, right? So giving them as little attention as possible. And then later on, we can go and address those. So I'm going to be talking about consequences later, but sometimes kids need to learn from the natural consequences. So, if they are freaking out and they're going to threaten to pour their milk, you're not going to say this, but you're going to act very indifferent. You're going to act like, well, it's no skin off my back, dude. Like, you pour the milk, you're the one cleaning it up, right? You're not going to say that because that's going to push buttons, but that's the kind of attitude. Normally, though, we're like, don't you dare pour the milk. right? And then they're going to start pouring the milk because now they've got our attention and they're going to engage. We don't want them to pour the milk, but if they do, well, you know what? That's your choice. You're going to learn from the natural consequence, and I will get to consequences as well. Any talking and engaging and all of that can come later on when everyone's calm. So for today, I want you to practice acknowledging your kids for the behaviors you do want to see, right? So when they're talking respectfully, when they're coming and getting your attention nice and calmly, or getting along with their siblings, anything that they're doing that you want, make sure you just acknowledge it. And it could just be, hey, kiddo, you know, I really appreciate how well you got along with your sister while I was on that phone call. Thanks, right? That's all it really needs to be. And we're going to start ignoring the behaviors we don't want to see. Those come up in the family meetings or your collaborative problem solving sessions. Hey, bud, I noticed that this is happening, or, you know, whatever is going on. I want you to also continue writing down everything that you're doing on your workability worksheet, right? So writing down, okay, today I whispered, yeah, that worked, or no, it didn't work, right? I'm giving you lots of tips. Some will work for you, some might not. And you might need to try them a few times. It's not just a one and done. But start writing them on your workability worksheet, because you're going to be using those later on when we create your parenting plan after the 30 days. So that's the attention-seeking behaviors. Tomorrow we're going to get into some more of the power struggles. And I just hope you have a great day with your kids. Good luck trying all of these things, and I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.